Hi, I'm John, and this is a full power Super Saiyan Broly. But what if I can turn him into the controlled full power Super Saiyan form from the Dragon Ball Super manga? Let's find out. But before I do that, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more projects like this one. Alrighty, let's go make some broccoli soup. This time around, Broly was so huge, he wouldn't even fit in the pot. But once I got him into two halves, I was able to take him apart. Let's start with the torso. I wanted to make him look like he was wearing spandex, so the first thing I had to do was to shave down his perky nips a bit. Since his scars were also sculpted in, and you shouldn't really see them much through his clothes, I used some Tamiya putty to fill in the gaps on his abs, chest, and his arms. By the way, everything I'm using in this video today is linked in the description below, and if you have any questions, leave a comment and I'll try my best to answer. To give him a turtleneck on his spandex, I mixed together some Tamiya epoxy putty, rolled out a long noodly bit, and applied and blended it into his neck. To replicate this panel of the manga, I wanted to change his mouth expression, so using an X-Acto knife, I cut his mouth out, applied some Tamiya epoxy putty, and resculpted the mouth. Then I used some Tamiya basic putty to fill in these lines around his eyes and around his mouth to make sure that the sculpting I did blends in with the original sculpt. After everything dried, it was time to sand everything down to make it nice and smooth. And with the sculpting out of the way, it's prime time. Per usual, I use Army Painter spray primers, using some white on the boots, black on the shirt and the pants, and demonic yellow on Ba's ears and on his hair. The way that the demonic yellow primer sat on the original green hair was actually the exact shade that I wanted the final colors to be, so instead of painting over it, I decided to dry brush highlights directly on top of it, using a mix of light green, deep yellow, and white. Then I mixed in some more white to dry brush on the tips and some of the edges that I really wanted to highlight. Moving down to the torso, I painted the spandex shirt black, definitely on purpose and definitely not because I forgot he wore this outfit in the superhero movie and that it was dark purple there. Next, I painted his neck and hands using a mix of sunny skin tone and medium skin tone. For his armbands, I painted the rims white and the middle of them black. To dry brush highlights on his spandex, I started with a mix of purple and black. Then I brushed an additional layer of highlights with a lighter shade of the same paints. Next, I highlighted a dark gray made with stonewall gray and black on the center of his armbands to give it some extra texture. Finally, for the skin, I added in 2 layers of progressively lighter highlights using a mix of sunny skin tone and light blush. Moving on to his body, I base coated his legs using some royal purple and black. And similar to his armbands, I painted his boots white and black. Then I painted on the boot tips using some light green and sun yellow. I painted in the soles of his shoes using a stonewall gray, and then moved into the highlighting. Similar to the armbands, I painted the parts of his black section of the boots with a dark gray, and the boot tips with a lighter shade of light green from earlier. I used some royal purple for the initial layer of highlights on his leggings. Then I mixed in some white to the royal purple and added it only to the highest raised areas of the musculature and the bones to give it a little bit extra dimension. Moving on to Ba's ears, I painted the whole exterior light green with a little bit of deep yellow mixed in. I painted the entire interior of it with an Army Painter Barbarian flesh. To add highlights, I used a lighter shade of green, being careful to only dry brush the areas of the hair that's actually raised up. Then to give it a little bit more dimension, I added another round of highlights only on the tips of the folds with a lighter shade of the green. Dry brushing the fur was probably my favorite thing to do on this project because it really brings out the texture of the sculpt. For the little flesh colored sections on the tie, I used a little bit of basic skin tone to add in as a highlight. Moving on to the face, after I primed it earlier, I saw a few dents in the parts that I sculpted, so I added some Tamiya surface liquid primer on it to sort of fill in those gaps, and sanded it one more time. And base coated it with the same sunny skin tone and medium skin tone that I used on his neck. Then I painted his eyes white. paint his pupils, I used an initial layer of emerald and black. Then I painted on his eyebrows to help eliminate any overspill from painting in the pupils earlier with a little bit of sun yellow and light green. To do the interior of the pupils, I used some emerald and white, painting all the way up to the edge, leaving a bit of that initial darker layer in as an outline for the pupils. Lastly, I gave it the John Hobby Room Special and added in some white around the pupils to give it a little extra dimension. And to finish off the face, I added in 2 layers of highlights using a mix of sunny skin tone and light flesh. Moving into the finer details, I added some Tamiya brown panel liner all over the lines on and around his eyes and his mouth. I also added in some brown panel liner in between his fingers to make it look like there's actual separation between them. Then for his ears and the skin folds on his hands, I used some Tamiya pink brown panel liner. I also used it on his scar to see if that would be sufficient. Spoiler alert, not really. Moving down to the boots, I used a black wash created from black panel liner and some Tamiya X20 thinner on the tips of his boots and around his boot soles. I also used some gray panel liners on the white section of his boots. Lastly, to clean up any overspill from applying the panel liner and to neaten up all my line work, it was time to clean up my lines using some X20 thinner and some pointed Q-tips. If you're interested in learning more about how to detail your figures with panel liners, I have a full tutorial video of how I use them. Check that out in the video on the top right to find out more. After cleaning it all up, the pink panel liner didn't really stay in the scar sculpt like I intended, so I ended up painting it in using some brown rose. Lastly, as a protective layer and to give the figure a matte finish, I applied a Krylon matte clear coat to the entire thing. All that was left to do was to put them back together. And he's done. Here's how he looked like before. And here's the final result. As usual, I had fun with this one. The real challenge here was to take a character who's basically all purple and green and make each color look distinct. Like I mentioned earlier, my favorite part of doing this whole project was coloring Ba's ears, as I really love the dry brush fur. What's your favorite? Let me know in the comments. Of course, thanks to all my members, with special thanks to my newest member, Nimbus Collectibles, who has a YouTube channel on unboxing Dragon Ball trading cards, which you can check out in the description below. Also in the description is a link to my membership, which is $2 a month, where you can get live updates of whatever project I'm working on, as well as some member-only polls that can help influence certain content on the channel. but most importantly, you'd be helping me out directly. And again, check the description for my Amazon storefront where you can find everything I use in this video. Make sure you check out my other projects and figure reviews on my channel. And if you like my work, subscribe, drop a like, leave a comment, and hit the notification bell so you know when my next video is going to drop. Thanks for watching. See you next time.